Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. So you want your sample to arrive in 2 days? Very well then. Happened a few years back in my old job. I was on the sales team of a small Chinese chemical firm that was still trying to develop new customers. The procurement manager of one of our potential customers, let's call it Lucky Star, asked us to send a 230 kilogram sample, 1 steel drum net weight, to their site for industrial trial. Usually the way it works is that we'll ask our logistics company to truck it to the closest transit hub, where the drum will be loaded on another truck bound to a different transit hub. Repeat the process until it gets to the destination. This will usually take around 2 to 7 weeks, depending on the truck's availability. Lucky Star's procurement manager is fine with the delay, but the site manager won't have it. 2 to 7 weeks is unacceptable. We need them now. This is actually not uncommon in our industry. Lots of site managers are in the payrolls of their company's supplier. So whenever a new competitor shows up, their spies will feed them infos and alter lab results. My boss knew it well, so he told us to ask Lucky Star's site manager if air freight and other options is okay. The boss said, but make sure you record your phone call. And I did just that. The exact exchange was forgotten, but this is roughly how it went. How long will it take? Depends on the flight schedule, but it will probably take about 1 to 2 weeks, since we'll need to get approval from the airline first, provide them with MSDS and other documents for safety reasons. Unacceptable, you're too slow. We can get the sample to you in 2 days if you wish. Well, do it then. At this point, I'm starting to lose it, but I told him I'll see what I can do. My boss was listening right next to me. He said, "Did you guys figure out the payment details?" I told him the sample will be free. Boss said, "Did you say we'll handle the shipping cost?" I say, "No." Boss says, "Good." He told me to send the package with a 2-day option, but with payment on arrival, which is 10 times more expensive than the usual method. So I did just that. A few days later, I got a very angry site manager screaming on his phone. He was later on replaced by someone else. Recently, the truth was revealed to me. Turns out, the procurement manager, my boss, and the replacement guy were all in it together. They all worked for the same company for about a decade until they decided to quit. My boss went solo and founded his own company in the same industry. His friends were all headhunted to Lucky Star, one to procurement and the other to production. They claimed the whole thing was to get rid of an old freak without any progressive mindset and won't bat an eye if Lucky Star suffered financial losses. They claimed they're actually doing a favor for the company. With a new competitor in the supply chain, it will bring down the production costs by forcing actual competition. I left the company to pursue other careers afterwards, but I still think about what they told me that day occasionally. These companies aren't holding back. These companies are out for blood. Even though there was past history to it, it was all in the intention to get that guy in hot water. Another zoning law tale. This happened in the 80s in a well-to-do Bay Area suburb, and several family members were the architects of this malicious compliance. My dad and his cousin owned a large parcel of land, 10 acres, that was full of junk, piles of dirt and rocks, and a few abandoned vehicles beyond rusted out. Being the kids of real estate developers and entrepreneurs, they decided they wanted to build 2 office buildings. But their land was zoned for light industrial and they needed it to be rezoned to commercial. So they filed the necessary paperwork and make the surrounding community aware of their plans. This is where the community gets worried that a sudden influx of cars during the day at office buildings would lower their quality of life, and starts protesting and sending letters threatening legal action if they proceed with the rezoning process. So my dad and his closest cousin / best friend get this idea to use the mostly useless lot for something that the neighbors and the community would really hate in order to make an office park seem reasonable by comparison. After hours of ideas are thrown around, they decide to build a massive go-kart track as it falls under a light industrial zoning law loophole. And then they decide to go for the grand slam and make it a 24-hour go-kart track. The surrounding neighborhoods and community, as well as the immediate neighbors, were so vocal about this new venture that they began pleading with my dad and family members to reapply for the rezoning, and that they would all support an office park of the god-awful 24-hour go-kart track. Not being that vindictive, they restarted the process a week later to convert the site to a commercial office park. If you lived in this neighborhood, how would you be feeling about this go-kart track and also the office park in comparison? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do not open that gate. You're doing thousands of pounds worth of damage. This story belongs to my dad, who served some time as a caretaker serving 2 schools in the UK, one really good and another not so much. No prizes for guessing where this starts. The school previously had a regular gate that would be left open during the day. There were fences in the main ground to keep visitors away from the main body of the school, so there were no safety concerns, but the new headmistress decided that they needed a more secure front gate. When all was done, a new code-operated gate was installed in the vehicle width alley leading into the grounds. You'd drive close to one side, tap in the code, hydraulic pistons would open both sides for around 30 seconds and then close again. There was a pedestrian access gate right next to it on a second keypad, powered by a maglock. My dad never liked technology that much, especially unnecessary technology, but the whole thing wasn't so bad, so things carried on as normal. Now, the school itself is accessed via the wide valley from the residential road that it's on. Because it's also a less affluent area, very few have gardens big enough for driveways, so there are always cars parked on both sides. As a result, it's not that wide. If 2 cars were to come across each other, one would have to pull into the gaps where the rare driveways existed to let the other pass. Then, the gate starts malfunctioning. Every now and then, it'd just not open for some reason. My dad would hear about this, have to walk over to the gate, climb up the side, unlock a panel and disable the hydraulics, then press a button to unlock the mechanism, at which point he could just push it open. Once whoever's needed it has passed through, he'd close it up, enable the mechanism, then re-enable the hydraulics and it'd be working again, at least until the next time. This went on for several months, with the headmistress not really responding to the request to have the gate looked at, as it always kept on working once it was reset, so obviously it can't be that bad. Then, one day, after my dad's manually opened and closed the gate for someone, he receives a message to see the headmistress in her office, coincidentally within the range of the treasurer and the secretary, at which he's told, "I understand you've been unlocking the main gate manually. You're doing thousands of pounds worth of damage and you're not to do it." The usual protests go through, but the end result is the same. No more manually unlocking the gate. No problemo. We all see where this is going. The fateful day rolls around. My dad turns up to work at around 6:45 a.m., having a 7 a.m. start, and the gate won't open. No problem, he's not supposed to. So knowing exactly what's going to happen later, he parks on the road, enters via the pedestrian gate, opens the school, and gets on with his usual duties. It's also raining quite well. Not too heavy, but certainly where you'd not want to be without cover. This only serves to add to his sense of well-being. Over the next couple of hours, he encounters the arriving teachers and kitchen staff who tell him the gate won't open and can he please come over and let them in. Sorry, he says. The headmistress has had a meeting with him and explained he's no longer to open it, so there's nothing he can do. They're a little put out by this, but he has a good relationship with most people there, so it's just accepted, and he goes back to his duties. At some point, someone who left their car at the gate to go and get it opened has come back to find someone else behind them, and so on. By around 8 a.m., the alley has around 5 cars in it, and the rest are spilling over down the road. In the middle of all this, being a Monday, a delivery truck has turned up, and in all the fuss, the teachers have had to unload it and store the contents in their cars to let the driver escape to their next drop-off, which would have been a challenge in itself. My dad, while expecting this, is blissfully soldiering on with his duties until a certain headmistress manages to track him down as he winds his way back towards the front. This poor woman has been out in the rain for about 10 minutes looking for him, and her appearance shows it. Makeup running, hair bedraggled. She informs him that the gate won't open, to which he replies, "Yes, I noticed that, so I parked on the road today." As they turn a corner on the way to the gate, he's now faced with the massive congregation of teachers, parents, and kids, all of which have had to park down the road and walk up in the rain, all standing around angrily. No doubt the entire road is blocked at this point, with around 300 students worth of parents trying to deliver their spawn as well. This is where he chooses to make his stand, and in full view and earshot of everyone, completely deadpan, declares, "Well, the last time I opened it, you told me I was doing thousands of pounds worth of damage and I'm not to do it." I will never forget that exact phrase and tone of voice. This exact imitation is thoroughly enjoyed in our household. She looks gobsmacked, and in this pause, he also adds, "I think I need to have it in writing, when I can open it and when I can't, as this is all very confusing." This snaps her out of it, and trying to ignore the obvious glances and whispers of the onlookers, looks him dead in the eye and responds very curtly, "I think you and I need to have a discussion." To which he replies, "Yes, I think you're right." He then happily ambles over to the gate, climbs up and opens it, deciding to come back later to close it when the small army of disgruntles has dissipated. While he never did tell us the exact outcome of that meeting, it's clear that, while rocky anyway, their relationship did not blossom at all after that. Luckily, he retired a couple of years later and often ponders the fate of his successor. All I can really say is if there's actual damage being done, then maybe you should look at it and get it fixed. Mailbox Customer Gets and doesn't get exactly what he asked for. I own a mail shop. You've probably seen 100 like mine. We have mailboxes we rent, and we rented one. We'll just call him Box 109. 109 wasn't a nightmare customer, but he also was never pleasant. He always accused us of changing the lock on his box because his key didn't work. Inevitably, he just wasn't using it correctly, and I'm aware of how crazy this sounds. So he closes his box. We are required under the United States Postal Service to hold mail for 6 months, and then we can return to sender or send to the customer's last known address. We are not required to provide this mail free of charge in the interim. Usually, if it's just a piece or two or something we know is important, we'll call the customer and hand it over with a smile. Well, 109 tells my employee that he is expecting some mail from the DMV and he'd like her to tell him when it's here. Time goes by, we're now at month 6, and I am getting ready to return to sender. My employee sees the stack, mostly stuff from the IRS, and says, "Oh, let me call him." I say, "Okay, that's awfully nice of you, go for it." So she calls. He comes in and proceeds to berate her for calling him for mail he doesn't want. Apparently, the letters from the IRS are just annoyance letters he intends to ignore. He leaves before I get the chance to kick him out. Too slow in the draw. It's now been 8 months since his box is closed. Guess what came for him the other day? His stimulus check. My employee looked torn and I told her, "He said everything from the IRS is just crap. Return it to sender. We're just doing exactly what he requested." I gave her the honor of doing it. Just goes to show you that you never quite really know how it can bite you in the butt when you be a jerk. My 7th grade math teacher didn't like that I used the restroom. When I was back in 7th grade, I had this horrible math teacher. A few examples of what she did was take my Kindle when I read after I finished a test, when other kids were also reading, wanting me to come by at the end of school to pick it up from the front office, taking away my calculator when I wiped it off with my shirt as it had eraser shavings on it, because it was distracting me. What? She even wrote a racist comment on a Hispanic friend of mine's test when she returned it after grading. Not going to give more info, including the phrase written, because it would let you just Google it and get the school name. She was a overall horrible person. Well, here comes my part of the story. So back in 7th grade, I drank a ton of water because I was very thirsty frequently, and by extension, had to use the restroom a bunch. One day, I guess she had enough, because she said that without a doctor's note, I could no longer go to the restroom during her class because it disturbed the class. And I also believe she thought I was skipping class, cheating or something. Which is super unlike me because I love math, and relating to the cheating on tests, I didn't even have a phone at that age. So I don't know how she thought I was pulling that off. So what me and my family did is that we went to the doctor's office, told my doctor the situation. He's super nice, and he laughs and writes me a note. So the next day, I asked to go to the restroom, and she says something along the lines of, "Unless you have a doctor's note, you can't use the restroom." I promptly hand her my doctor's note and leave the classroom. Kinda anticlimactic, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. One story that definitely sets me off all the time is these teachers that don't let kids go to the restroom. It's fine to make assumptions. Maybe they are cheating. Whatever it is. If they're not, you can really be hurting that child. I fried my friend's computer just so he won't have to do his work. Okay, so lately the teachers have been giving us work to do online, and they gave all of the kids in the middle school I go to a Chromebook. The Chromebooks cost around $500 each. The work the school has been giving us is not that hard, it is easy to do, etc. My friend hates doing schoolwork, and so do I, but I managed to get through it. My friend would always complain about how hard the work is and how it is unfair how he has to do it. My friend recently got an email from his teacher saying that they want to meet him at school and check his Chromebook because he has been going on some sites he should have not gone on. He got all worried and started asking me if there is ways to get the Chromebook to turn off so it would not turn on again. I know my way around tech and computers. I said yes. My friend asked me how. I said I can, but it would cost you. My friend cut me off and he said, "I will pay $10. I'm just thinking to myself on what my friend just asked and tried to make sure if he really wanted me to do this. My friend said yes. I wanted to clarify with him that if he gets in trouble, then I am taking no blame. He agreed. My friend broke my Xbox in a fit of rage because he lost at a game, and he did not even apologize or even try to make up for it. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. I have a collection of USB killers. In case if you don't know what they are basically USB drives that can fry almost anything, making it not work again. I charged up one of my USB killers and then I went to my friend's house. My friend was waiting for me, he paid me $10. I plugged the USB killer in, you could hear a pop when I plugged the USB killer in. I took the USB killer out, put it back in my pocket. The next day, my friend goes to school. It turns out he had to pay back $520 because of a computer that was thought to have been dropped in water. My friend was really mad at me. I told him that he said to me to get the Chromebook to turn off so it could never be turned on again, and that is what I did. Sorry friend, but you should have at least apologized for breaking my Xbox and acting like it was nothing. I don't know what he was expecting by, "Can you make this thing turn off and not be able to turn back on again?" This one screams like surprised Pikachu face to me. Like he basically told this guy, "Hey, break this thing," and then they get all surprised when they actually broke it. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today, so what I want to know is which of these stories was your personal favorite and why? Let me know which of these stories today was your personal favorite and why in the comments down below. And thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.